Thank you all for having me. This is such an amazing vehicle that you have. I had no idea that this existed, and I'm so thankful for Denise and Ms. Nowak for getting me connected. Thank you. And so I do want to just start with introducing myself, because I would love for us to just feel like friends talking by the time we get into this. I don't want it to feel like I'm just talking at you, but honestly, if you have any questions, you can just pop in. I don't know that I can answer questions in the chat as I talk. I'm just not that dexterous or tech savvy, but just pop in if you have a question. So I just want to tell you just a few seconds about myself. I am from Memphis, Tennessee. I grew up in Bethel Grove, graduated from Central High School in 1990, and then went immediately into the Navy, which changed my life, grew me up really quickly. I became a Navy nurse. After I got out of the Navy, experimented in hospice, had never heard of hospice in the Navy, helped start a hospice in North Carolina, then moved back home to Memphis with my family, went to Union University to get my family nurse practitioner certification, and then jumped back into hospice as a nurse practitioner. And so I do have a little more than 10 years of hospice experience. I have at times kind of delved into other areas of practice, rheumatology, podiatry, urology, psychiatry, but somehow I always find my way back to hospice. It is my first love. And so I realized that it is a very scary subject. People don't like to talk about it. And what I have figured out is that a lot of communities, whether it is the Christian community or certain ethnic communities, really see hospice as giving up. And so they feel like if we talk about it, then we aren't trusting God, or we aren't trusting our own strength. And some people even fear that when you come onto hospice, we're going to expedite your transition to heaven. And I always tell my patients, we don't rush you to heaven, but we also don't slow things down like traditional medicine does. We walk at the same pace that you're walking with Christ, and we keep up with you. And so I just want to reassure people, and I'm just hoping to equip you so that if you know someone who might be appropriate for hospice, you can tell them you're not giving up. You're just choosing to fight a different way. You're choosing to spend your last days, weeks, months on earth at home with your family, watching The Price is Right, or whatever you want to watch, instead of spending it at the dialysis center or in the ER, or going back and forth to appointments that might not be fruitful. And so I want to just say that hospice has been around since the beginning of time. People have been taking care of their loved ones who are in the last phase of their life since man was created. But as an organization, hospice goes all the way back to the Crusades. That's the first time that hospice as an organized entity is mentioned. And then it kind of fell off, but then in the 1940s, 50s in England, hospice was started again as an organized opportunity for people to receive end-of-life care. And in the 1970s, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross revolutionized hospice for the United States, and then Medicare jumped on board in the 1980s. And so what that means is that everyone is entitled to hospice, and it is a free benefit, and it actually is an entitlement. I consider it a grave disjustice if people die without experiencing the blessing that hospice is. And I hope that as I answer questions and just share my experiences, you will realize that it truly is something you're entitled to, and it is a blessing for you and your family. And so, as I mentioned, Medicare, they are the overarching authority when it comes to hospice. All other insurances kind of default to the way Medicare does it. And Medicare has set up very, very clear guidelines as to who is appropriate for hospice. There are certain diagnoses, and most people think of cancer, but hospice is not only relevant for patients who have cancer. There are several other diagnoses for which someone can be hospice appropriate. Stroke is one, heart disease, kidney disease, ALS, Parkinson's, Huntington's disease, HIV, liver disease, any kind of end-stage disease. And even if those aren't a disease that the patient has, but the patient is just losing a lot of weight, can't eat as much as they want to, weaker than they used to be. There's even a diagnosis called severe protein calorie malnutrition, which we check someone's albumin, look at weight loss, and we can admit someone for that, for simply not being able to maintain their own calorie balance. And so Medicare does set these requirements. We actually have checklists that we go by. So if someone, if we get a referral for Alzheimer's, it is not, an end-stage Alzheimer's patient is not someone who is kind of putzing around at home, turning on the stove, although that's very, very difficult for families. It's not someone who kind of wanders off and gets lost at the mall. It's someone who is at the point where they are not able to walk as well. They're not able to feed themselves as well. Maybe they are incontinent of bowel and bladder. They require a lot of assistance, and sometimes they may not even be able to talk. That is what an end-stage Alzheimer's patient looks like according to Medicare. And Medicare has based those requirements on this basic question: would their primary care provider or their specialist be surprised if this patient was still with us in 6 months? If their primary care provider or their specialist can say, Mr. Smith has cardiac disease. He has been in the hospital 6 times in the last year. He constantly is requiring additional Lasix or new medications, or we're having to add metolazone on top of his Lasix. Then his primary care provider or his cardiologist can say with integrity, I don't think Mr. Smith will be here in 6 months if we allow this disease process to continue unabated. Once the primary care provider or the specialist makes that determination, they make a referral to us. And if there's any question, or even if the family has questions, if they're not sure about hospice, then I or one of my colleagues can go out to their home, or our marketing team can go out to their homes and answer those questions, just to reassure the patient. Or sometimes when I go out, I say, even though this is not an optimal situation, unfortunately, I cannot check off those boxes to say that this patient is hospice appropriate. But there is always the opportunity to just reach out to us at Baptist. Our phone number is super simple. It's 767-6767. And just say, hey, my aunt or my cousin, this is what's going on, and I have some questions, and we will send someone. Generally, I will call just to say, hey, I got your information. I'd love to answer questions. Sometimes those questions can be answered on the phone, but if not, one of us can come out and have a face-to-face conversation about hospice and just help you understand if it is the next step in your medical journey. And so that first step is for us to actually admit you would be having your primary care provider or your specialist to refer you. The family can always reach out to their primary care doc or nurse practitioner or cardiologist and say, hey, we have been fighting this fight for such a long time, and mom is tired, and we just cannot go to the hospital anymore. We don't see that it's benefiting her anymore. It's just kind of dragging things out, and she's miserable. We would like a referral to hospice. So you can initiate that referral, and oftentimes, because you have such a great rapport with your provider, they will go ahead and give us a call and have us come out. Once we know for sure that the patient's appropriate, then we can go ahead and admit you. We have a nurse come to the house, do the admission, and then soon thereafter, within the next day or so, you'll start having your regular nurse. And I just like to mention that hospice is a team. It's an amazing team that you get. You don't go to your regular provider any longer, but instead you have a nurse come to your house 2 to 3 times a week, depending on how much you need. You have a CNA, someone who can come in and help with bathing and linen changes 2 to 3 times a week. And those numbers are just our baseline. As patients become weaker or need more assistance or have more symptom changes, we certainly can increase how often the nurse and the CNA comes to your home. We also have a chaplain who's part of our team, someone who can support you spiritually. Even our patients who are not Christians, our chaplains are still there just to walk with you on the spiritual journey. And we also have social workers who are amazing. And they help not only with resources in the community. If you don't know that you're entitled to certain resources, they can help you navigate that. But they also are counselors. They can, they're a shoulder to lean on, not just for the patient, but for the family as well. And then we have the nurse practitioner and our medical director, Dr. Bryan, is phenomenal. She, I say she has the three C's. She's compassionate. She is a great communicator, and she is competent. She knows how to treat symptoms in a great way. And I have learned so much from her over the last 2 years that I've been working with her. And so I do want to just point out that once you come on hospice, you can keep your primary care provider, or you can come on board with us and have Dr. Bryan be your medical provider. And I do recommend that only because I've seen a handful of times when patients elect to keep their primary care provider. If we have symptoms that are changing quickly, it's difficult for us to call and say, hey, Mr. Smith is having this symptom. What can we do to help him? Sometimes there's a time lapse until we hear back from that office. Whereas with us, you are our patient, our primary patient, and we can make changes literally within moments. Dr. Bryan or myself is always on call. The nurses, if they come in and see that a patient is short of breath or very anxious or any sort of symptoms, having constipation or any symptoms you can think of, then they can call us just like that. And within a few moments, we can make decisions along with the patient, the family, and the nurse based on what is going on. And so you have the right to keep your provider. I think it is more efficient time-wise to choose to come on with us. It makes no difference when it comes to the Medicare benefit, whether you keep your provider or come with us. You have that right. And I do want to talk about, so I'm primarily talking about our home program. So this is if someone is living in their home or in a nursing home or assisted living, independent living, our nurse comes to you. But I do want to share that we also have, as someone mentioned, in Collierville, we have our hospice house, which is, I think, a not very well known, amazing place. It really, I tell my kids, it's like a retreat center where people go to transition to heaven. It's beautiful aesthetically. If you've ever seen it, it literally looks like just a ski lodge. But the people inside of it are beautiful also. The nurses there, they have a chaplain social worker as well. And so the hospice house is great for people who have decided for whatever reason that they cannot stay home or they would not want to stay home during these last days, weeks, or months of their life. And so they can come to the hospice house residentially. We have 24-hour staff that is phenomenally and clinically strong, who are there to check on you every moment of the day and address any needs that occur. There's, again, nurses, social worker, chaplains, CNAs, and administrative staff out there. Right now, because of COVID, our visiting hours are a little different. Generally, the hospice philosophy is that no one should die alone. And so generally, before COVID, our doors were wide open. Now things are a bit limited to one visitor for a few hours a day. And our hope is that as soon as things are safe again, we can open our doors wide open again. But we do want to just make sure that our patients and our staff are safe. But if someone goes residentially, although Medicare pays for the actual hospice benefit, there is an additional fee for room and board. And so if you're interested in the hospice house, you can call me or Denise, our marketer, or I think Brooke, our marketer, is on the call as well now, and we could help direct you to the hospice house. And there are two other ways to go to the hospice house that actually are no cost. If someone is having symptoms that are out of control. So if we have a home patient who we have tried to get pain or nausea under control and we're just having a tough time, then the patient can go to the hospice house GIP, which is generalized inpatient. And that basically, we're telling Medicare, we have done all we can in this patient's home to get them comfortable. And now we need to take them to an inpatient setting so that we can really address these symptoms as well as possible. And that is indefinite. If we can get the patient there, get those symptoms addressed within 3 days, then the patient can go right back home. Going to the hospice house doesn't mean you have to stay there. So that's GIP. That doesn't cost anything. The second way that you can go to the hospice house at no cost is respite. And Medicare allows 5 days of respite for patients when families might say, you know, we love our dad so much, but we things are hard right now and we just need a break for 5 days. Or there is a wedding out of town and we need to go, but of course we can't leave mom home alone, so we want to send her to the hospice house for 5 days. That is absolutely free. You get those 5 days of respite so that your loved one can be taken care of and you can do the things that you need to do, because your health and wellness are just as important as the patient's. And I hope, just as you see that hospice is a team, I hope that you'll know that we are there not just to take care of that patient. I think Denise mentioned that. We are there for the entire family, extended family, and we're not just there until the patient passes away, but even after that, we reach out to you. We see how you're doing. We check on you. We do all that we can to show that we're here for you, not just for the patient. And so I just wanted to mention, so those are the options, the home program, the hospice house. And then the great thing about Baptist that a lot of other hospices don't have is that we have an affiliation with Baptist Memorial Hospital. And so there's a certain floor there on the 5th floor, and there's a few beds that we have set aside just for our patients. So sometimes if someone is GIP, they can go to the hospital instead of the hospice house. And now, again, COVID has affected that to some degree, but those beds are available for our patients, and it is a great opportunity, again, that most hospices don't have. And so I just, I hope that you will understand that Baptist Trinity Hospice is a company that has been around for a really long time. We love our patients, love our staff. We are a happy team. We really work well together. And we look forward to the opportunity to serve you or your family member or your neighbor. And you don't have to understand the ins and outs of hospice. You really don't. I know there's a lot to understand. I have been doing it for over 10 years and I love it. And people say, how can you love something that's so morbid? I have had 5 family members in the last few years who have benefited from hospice. And I always tell people we're all going to pass away at some point. The question is, how will we pass away? Will we pass away at the hospital? Right now, because of COVID, people are passing away at the hospital by themselves. Or will you be home with people who love you in your own bed, with your dog on your bed or your cat? So we do get to choose how we leave this earth. And the last point I want to say is hospice is a 6-month benefit, but we do have patients that live past those 6 months as long as they're appropriate. We've had patients on service for 8 months, 9 months, sometimes longer than that, as long as they continue to be hospice appropriate. But oftentimes we have patients who don't make it to those 6 months because there has been a delay in starting hospice. Sometimes people say, oh, I just want to try this last thing, which is absolutely you're right, and you know we all fight differently, but it's heartbreaking to us in hospice when we get someone in the last 24 hours of their life or the last 3 days of their life, because again they didn't get to experience the fullness of what hospice is. And I hope that you'll look at my email address in the chat box and my phone number, and please feel free to call. I don't mind answering any questions at all.
All right. Let me go back to my chat here. Does anybody have any questions? If you just want to unmute yourself right now, we've still got a good 10 or 15 minutes. So if
awesome
question, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask Sherrie.
Sherrie, I have a question, or not a question, but a comment. I don't understand. When my mother was in hospice 2 years ago, and I had spent quite a bit of time with her, but it became evident that I wasn't going to be there at her final moments. And the hospice worker suggested to my sister that they call me and gave me a chance to just tell my mom everything on my heart, all the thank yous, all the love. And thank goodness the hospice workers suggested that. That was so precious to me. And thank you for what you do. It made my mom's leaving this earth much, much easier for the family and for her as well. So thank you for what you do.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think you will find that for most hospice workers, it really is a call. It's ministry for us. I remember before I even knew what hospice was, I was working in an ER in North Carolina, and a sweet little lady came in from a nursing home, and it was very clear that she was going to die, and she had no family members. And again, I was just out of the Navy, had only practiced aggressive, do everything you can kind of medicine. But something in my heart told me that this little lady should not die alone. I had never heard that philosophy before. It just wasn't something we talked about growing up or that I had been exposed to. But I went in and sat with that little lady and sang hymns until she passed away holding my hand. And I realized several years later when I actually got into hospice that it is a call to love people until they transition to heaven. And so I'm glad you had that experience. And oftentimes patients, even though they may not be able to speak, everyone knows that they can still hear us. And so oftentimes they do need to hear, you were a great mom, you did a good job, I'm going to be okay. Because sometimes they hold on because they're so concerned that we won't be okay. And it is very, it's a release for them to hear us say, I'm going to be fine. You have fought the good fight. You do what you need to do. And it really releases them to go on and transition. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Sherrie, I've got another testimonial for you.
Yes, sir.
This is Tom Landon with Mid-South Home Helpers. I had a situation too, and I want to bring this up because even in the face of a loved one who has a large family around them and a very strong support system, that, the inevitability of the health of my father when we lost him several years ago was receiving hospice care at home. Yes, and how important that was to make not only him more comfortable, but the entire family. So I think that what you do is wonderful. I think there's nothing negative about hospice care in any way, and quite the opposite. But I just wanted to share that even when people have a lot of family and a lot of support around them, that hospice care is still extremely important. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you. I studied psychology for a bit in school, and there's this theory that the more people there are, the less likely someone will do something. I think it's called a mob mentality maybe. But even when there's lots of family, everyone relies on someone else to do what needs to be done sometimes, not always. But you're right. Even though there's a huge family, we are there so that we can provide all of that clinical care and the bathing and things like that so that you can just be the son or just be the brother. And you can really, those last days, weeks, or months, you can just enjoy your loved one and we'll do all the hard work.
Yeah. I just, again, I don't have a question. I just want to share that it was actually at your hospice place that I was volunteering through my church, Incarnation. And I happened to visit a lady and I brought a rosary to her. I didn't know that how close she was to leaving us, but I ended up being the last person she saw, and her eyes were closed, and I was scared to go, to be honest with you, but
Sure.
You do what you're called to do. And I placed a rosary in her hand, and she opened her eyes and just, we connected. And I really thought that I would feel drained from that, because it would be emotional. But when I found out I was the last person to visit with her, and that we had that moment, the opposite was true. I just felt totally energized, and I felt like that I had made a difference for this person. Absolutely. And it just amazed me, and I can see it would be addictive to me, honestly, because you're just there for people at their time of need, and you just feel so fulfilled that you were able to do that.
You do.
Not a negative at all.
No, thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful.
Hey, Sherrie, this is Bill Emerling.
Yes, sir.
And we're not asking you a lot of questions, just imparting our personal experiences with hospice. But sometimes, you meet people in a day-to-day, and you look at people and you say, that person is exactly where they need to be, and that's you.
Wow. Thank you.
You bring so much joy and to a subject that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And my wife and I are in Tennessee because my mother-in-law came down with pancreatic cancer and obviously didn't have a good prognosis. So the last 3 weeks of her life, she had hospice care in her home.
Yes, sir.
And those women, those nurses, were angels on earth, without a doubt.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Bill.
Sherrie,
Sherrie,
somebody is asking you to put your contact information in the chat log, if you will, Sherrie, please.
Okay, I sure will.
Sherrie,
Go
this
ahead.
is Earl Leak. I do have a question. From
Yes.
your experience, the person who is in the hospital in the last stages versus somebody who's at home in hospice, have you seen that the person who's in hospice is living any longer than the person who stays in the hospital?
That is an excellent question, actually. When I first, when I became a nurse practitioner and went back into hospice, I looked up some studies, and there is a study that shows that patients who are at home on hospice live an average of 28 days longer than patients who are following the traditional medicine route, who are going in and out of the hospital, getting ventilated, getting tons of high, what I call heavy hitter drugs. The patients who are home and able to rest and have services come to them do live an average of 28 days longer.
Okay, that's
you can't apply that to everyone, but on average, people, because, you know, I think Americans in general, we consider quantity more important than quality. And so if we can drag out mama's life another 3 weeks, then that's great. But if she's miserable and she's uncomfortable, then it's not a win for mama. And so, but with hospice, I do believe we get quality as well as a few extra days, quality and quantity. It's a win-win, really.
All right.
That's
Thanks.
a great question, sir.
Hi, Sherrie. I have a comment. So I really resonate with all the other things people were saying. I mean, I'm pretty young and I don't have, like I have elderly parents living back in India. So this is something like a very sensitive topic for us as well. And I just wanted, I mean, I see your energy and this kind of shows how you can make this as your calling. And I just wanted to have a follow-up question on like, and I think Marilu kind of hinted on it, that she didn't feel drained after she saw like somebody doing the transition to heaven. And I just, I mean, it just feels, I mean, maybe I'm not there at that stage in my life, but I just feel like, do you do something emotionally to keep yourself strong? Like, is it very, I mean, for me, it's very easy to get connected to people. Like when you connect, you kind of attach, and there are negativity that comes around it. Then so is this something that you guys do to help you all the time in the zone?
Yes, that is a great question. When I was a hospice nurse, I went to a lot of funerals, and oh my gosh, that was very, very difficult. I remember one week going to 6 funerals. And when you're with hospice patients, it's very different than other medicine because all of the pretenses and, you know, things that are involved in other areas of medicine, you don't experience here. It is literally, I am hurting, what can you do? It is a very quick bond that forms between the hospice nurse and the patient. And so by the time that patient leaves this earth and you go to their funeral, you feel like you have lost a dear friend. And so it is very, very difficult. I remember after that 6th funeral going home and crying and wondering if I could continue to do this. But I'll tell you a couple things that are helpful to me. I have seen death that is so beautiful. And I truly believe this. Death can be as beautiful as birth. You know, it is a transition, just like birth is. And if it is done well, and that person is surrounded by family, and they are comfortable, and they have been able to say their goodbyes, it is just as beautiful as birth. So that brings me a lot of comfort. I feel like I literally get to walk people to heaven. And then the other thing that gives me comfort is, I just say this, I don't speak for everyone in our company, but I'm a Christian. And so I believe in the Bible where it says we don't grieve as those who have no hope. He doesn't say that we're not going to grieve and it's not going to hurt, but I do have hope that I'm going to see my patients again, and that I'm going to see them healed and whole in heaven at some point. And so that brings me a lot of comfort when those patients have been able to say to me, I have a patient right now who is still with us, but part of his medical history said, I'm a Christian, I've lived a strong life, and I'm ready to see Jesus. And when I hear that, I feel, I feel like I'm holding them back from getting to their ultimate goal if I try to hold on to them. And so I gain a lot of comfort from the patients, their families who are so thankful, and just knowing that God, for me, is real and that he welcomes them into his arms. But it is hard. I do cry. I got very teary-eyed when Mr. Bill was talking. I am a crier. I cry with my patients.
It's obvious you are doing the right thing, that you're in the right field, and the way you explained everything, I felt like I was right there in the office with you. One thing I want to ask: everything seems to be evolved around the patient. All the decisions, all the concerns, whatever is activated, is based pretty much solely on the patient. Is that a good statement or not?
Absolutely. I tell patients, you are the driver of this bus. We are simply passengers. If the patient is still cognitively intact and they say, I don't want this, then we don't do that. If they have made it very clear and put in writing what they want, which is super important, to have a living will and a healthcare power of attorney, if they have made that clear, once they cannot speak for themselves, that remains in place. We honor that patient until they leave this earth. And so, yes, sir, they are the center of it all.
Great. And that needs to be done too. The legal part of that is important. I had that done a few years ago and know exactly how that's going to take. That will take so much pressure off the family when you've designated somebody and they're responsible for what's going on. It really makes a big difference. I was so relieved when I got that done for me and my wife.
It is. I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts we can give our families, so they don't have to make that very difficult decision in the moment, when we're in the hospital or in the ER and they're trying to decide if I should be intubated. If I've already made that clear and in writing, they don't have to make that decision. And on the other side of everything, they can rest and they can have peace knowing that they didn't contribute or they just followed my wishes. And so it is very important.
Right.
Thank you so much, Sherrie, and everybody who has attended Talk Shop today. We're going